Thanks everyone for coming. 3 years ago, we had a significant leadership change at Reynolds & Reynolds. Our CEO stepped down, a new CEO stepped in. He put together a leadership team to drive us forward. And about 2 years ago, he asked me to be president of Reynolds & Reynolds. Now, I've been with Reynolds for 36 years, but I had spent the last 10 years before that announcement kind of outside of the DMS world. I was running, other parts of the company. So I had to relearn how we run our business on the DMS side of things, and I felt like I really needed to learn how to do that fast. For me, the best way to learn was to go talk to customers. So that's the path that I chose, and for the past 2.5 years, I've been traveling alongside Dave Bates, who Dave has been running our customer support organization and talking to customers for over 40 years. So Dave and I were kind of joined at the hip. We've been traveling around the country seeing customers, and we're going to continue to do that. So we've seen customers from Philadelphia to Mobile, and from Atlanta to Sacramento, and to Detroit, and dozens of points in between. And as those conversations grew, 3 themes began to emerge for me that I'd like to share. And one of those themes was dealers talking about our people. And when they talked about our people, they would really talk in glowing terms about how valuable they felt our people are and how good our people were. They would talk about how hardworking they were, and how passionate they were, and how committed to our customers' success that they were, and how well they knew our products. They would talk about people like Michael Wisely, who's one of our utilization partners, and Stosh Jones, who's another utilization partner. And what they do is they help our customers use our products and services better than they did before, and show them the impact of using our services and our products and services better. And when they would talk about them, they would talk about them almost in terms of that they were an extension of their business, not a Reynolds associate. And they would say things like, one of the main reasons we're still with Reynolds & Reynolds is because of the value that these people bring to a relationship. And all those stories really kind of stuck with me. The second thing that they would talk about is our products. And they would talk about how much we like your core products, from Era Ignite to DocuPad to Advanced Service, and how we kind of blended our acquisitions like Goobagoo and Recontract and integrated them into the retail management system. Just overall, that they really saw a lot of value in our products. The third thing that they would talk about is how difficult it was to do business with us, that we were inflexible, and that we were too rigid in the enforcement of our contracts, and that we were at times slow, whether it's an issue resolution or getting things handled for them. And sometimes it was difficult, to buy things from us, which I really found, kind of, odd. So when I heard all these things, I thought 2 things. I thought, well, it's not good to hear that our customers don't think that we have a great relationship with them, because it's always been something that I felt very strongly about. I started with Reynolds in the customer support organization, so I always had that customer support mentality kind of built into me. So the good part I felt was that, okay, we've got really good people and we've got really good products, because to fix those 2 things would be a much longer path for us. So in some ways, we just needed to get out of our own way and just start to work with our customers in a different way. So as we began to do that, I began to think about, why do we get up every morning and go to work? What is Reynolds really about? What are the 4,400 people that work here? Why do they get up every morning? And I think to me, it was a really simple answer. And the answer is, we exist in order to help our customers be successful. That's the reason why we're here. Now, there's lots of things that go along with that, but when we started making decisions and behaving differently based on existing to help our customers be successful, decisions got easier, and I think we got a lot more clarity around our business. And when we got clarity, we began to focus on really 3 pillars of our business as we move forward. The first part is really why a lot of you are here today, which is our product lineup. I felt like we had good products, but now is not the time to take our foot off the gas. Now is the time to even invest more heavily in things like Retail Anywhere. How can we help you interact with your customers, whether they're in a brick and mortar environment or whether they're online or what we're all most commonly seeing, some combination, of those two environments. How can we enable you, to work with customers, in a more effective and efficient way there? How can we help you with some of the key workflows that exist in your dealership? You think of the front office, and I think about things like, data analytics, and how can we help you with vehicle intake and accounts receivable and accounts payable? Certainly when a customer is buying a new or used vehicle, how can we enable you and your consumers to have a better experience than they did before, but ultimately giving you, still control over the transaction and the relationship? How can we help on the service side, whether it's, the scheduling side online or whether it's the consumer actually coming in from the time they hit the service advisor to the time they hit the cashier, and leave with their vehicle? Like, how can we help everybody be more operationally efficient in kind of those key areas? So that would be the first pillar. The second one is, I talked about our customer success, and we are investing heavily in resources in the field to help you do just that. So when I mentioned the utilization partners that we have in the field, we're going to change that model a little bit, and we're releasing a program called Reynolds Performance Managers, and we're going to have more of them in the field, but their job remains the same, is how can we help you utilize what you have from us better, and how can we help show you when you do those kinds of things, there is economic benefit, to your organization. So that's really, really important for us, something that we all as an organization feel really, really strongly about, and we're going to continue to invest there to help you be successful. And then the last one is, how we interacted, with the industry. I was talking to Brian Pash last night, that we were a relatively quiet organization. You didn't see us at, state association events and ADA events, and we were at NADA, but, different speaking engagement. We just weren't there for those kinds of things. And I really feel strongly, we're a 156-year-old company. We've been a business solely focused on automotive retailers since 1921, so 100 years of working, with car dealerships. So I feel like we've got, a lot of really smart people, a lot of experience in going through massive amounts of change, which we're back in massive amounts of change again. And I feel like we have a voice that can and should be heard. So we hired a gentleman by the name of Sean Leibold. Sean's sitting back on the table back there. And Sean is leading our efforts to be a bigger voice and a bigger presence in the automotive industry. Sean, you did win golf, though, last night, right? Second? So if you ever get a chance to play with Sean, he hits the ball 400 yards, and it's never more than 4 inches off the ground. So it's really, really remarkable. But Sean's leading our efforts there. We're real excited about where we're going. We're not where we want to be yet, but we are excited about the path that Sean had us on. And I think when, what we're here today to do is to kind of connect the dots between the pillars that I just went through, our product lineup, our investment in your success, and our investment in the industry. Because I do feel like, when we're all rowing together, in the same direction, I think that's when we are at our strongest, and that's where I want us to be a bigger part, in helping this industry move forward. So again, thank you for taking the time to come here, for taking the time out of your busy schedules. Thank you for being customers of Reynolds & Reynolds. Thank you for, if you're not a customer, thank you for your interest in us. We want to do everything we can to earn your business. At this point in time, I would like to move on to the next section. So I was really excited when I got here yesterday. I had never been to the Indianapolis 500 before, and I was really kind of blown away by the facility and being right down there on the track, and the history and the memories and the tradition that this organization represents. So it was really exciting to be there. We have a couple of IndyCar drivers that are with us today, but I'd like to bring up to the stage Jason Stein. So some of you may know Jason from his 20 years at Automotive News. Jason was most recently was publisher, and he ran all their worldwide business operations. So Jason, come on up.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Chris. All right, good morning, everybody. How many people have been here before to this cool, massive place? Raise your hand. Okay. All right, how many people have won here before? Okay, Graham, Benjamin. How many people are going to win next year here? There we go. We got 2 in the back. It is my honor to introduce these next 2 individuals who have incredible stories. They are both car guys, literally, and one of them even has a big stake in the dealership world, which you're going to hear about. But Graham Rahal, of course, comes from a very famous family. You know the Rahal name well. You might also know that he is married to Courtney Rahal, and the 2 of them have a foundation which is dedicated to philanthropic efforts. Please welcome Graham Rahal to the stage. Graham, come on up.
Thank you.
1 top 5, 5 top 10s this year. The next individual, Benjamin Pedersen, is a rookie. Actually, he's just finished his rookie year, and he was Rookie of the Year at the Indy 500 this year. Please welcome Benjamin Pedersen. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
So both of you may or may not know that the show that I have on SiriusXM, I interviewed a certain driver 7 days before the last Indy 500, Joseph Newgarden. Oh, and he won. So which one of you is going to be on the show next?
You're going to have a list for next year now that everybody knows.
Exactly.
We already talked. I'm on the list.
But yeah, it's great to have you guys here. The Indy 500, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This is the Mecca when it comes to racing in the world. There's no better place to be. And I think, how many of you guys have been here before? So quite a lot. But you know the size of this place. It doesn't do it justice on TV, for sure. And seeing it on social media and everywhere else these days. So it's great for you guys to be here. I heard we played some golf yesterday. It's a good track over there. Roger spent a ton of money to make it look like Augusta. I'm not quite sure that it is, but he's tried.
But there's no trash anywhere in this facility that's on the ground, I'll tell you that. Yeah,
Zero.
the Roger touch. What's it like to be back here without cars racing around or without spending a month getting ready for this? Because I know you both spend a lot of time testing, and then you get into qualifications and bump day and then race day. Benjamin, what's it like being here with no one in the stands and incredibly quiet?
I mean, it's days like today. It really makes you appreciate it. When you come during the month of May, it's packed every day. You know, you got the pressure of being on track every day, performing, and then you come back on a day like today, and there's nobody in the grandstands, but you still remember the energy of being here during that month. And frankly, just the feeling of being on track. That's the feeling for me when I come here all the time is, you know, the mental thought process during a qualifying run or during the race. That's what speaks to me. And it's, as Graham said, this is the holy grail here. And when it's at its full caliber on race day, it's pretty hard to explain other than you just have to be here.
And Graham, you live here as well.
Yeah.
I mean, both of you live here, but
Yeah, I think it's it's nice to come on days like today because when we're here during May or when we were here just about a month ago, racing in the second Grand Prix, the Brickyard weekend with NASCAR and everything else, there's a lot of intensity. You know, most of the times when you come here, there's a job to be done. There's a lot that you're going through mentally, physically to perform, and I think particularly in May, the pressure builds. Things are going on this year. You know, my May was out of control. We actually didn't qualify for the race. Our team we were four of the five slowest cars. That was a tough time. I ended up then jumping in the race at the last second, driving for Dennis Reinbold here, one of the local car dealers. But barely drove a lap in his car, and the next thing you know, we're racing the 500. It's kind of a crazy month. And so, in a month like that, the intensity is so high. We knew from like the first laps we turned that we were in trouble when it came to just outright speed. And that's a pretty helpless feeling when you're here, particularly as a driver or a team, because you can't really do very much. Once you're here, all the development, all of the work has been done prior to you showing up for the month of May. So if you're trying to react then, it's way too late. And that's kind of the position that we were in. So to be back is a little refreshing. We were here for the Grand Prix, like I said, a month ago or so, and we were on pole here. If it weren't for a yellow that took 5 laps longer than it should have, we would have won, finished second, but it allowed Dixon, who was at the back of the pack, to do a fuel strategy and win the race on fuel strategy. So, kind of two opposite experiences in one calendar year here. but it's always awesome to be back and to get to come see this place.
Benjamin, what were your first impressions coming in here? I mean, you grew up in Denmark. You moved to Seattle when you were 4 years old, but the Indy 500, I'm sure, was always in your mind. And the first time you drove under the tunnel and under the track and into these gates, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I had the privilege of racing in Indy Next for the 2 years prior to my rookie year this year. So I raced here a couple of times, obviously not on the speedway. But being a rookie this year, it was my first ever Indy 500. I was very fortunate to be in an extremely fast car. I mean, like you saw Graham this year was struggling to make it, and then the year before, on track to potentially win it. So I think it goes to show how much this place changes weather-wise. Some years be extremely quick from what I can see, and then other years you can't get out of your own way. So I'm yet to experience that. I've only experienced a really good car here, which is very special. Not to mention it was with AJ Foyt Racing. I mean, one of the best guys here from a history perspective. And yeah, I had a very fortunate outing this year, and hopefully that can continue. But yeah, very, very special time of the year.
We'll get into a little bit of your own personal histories, but tell us, for those of us, well, frankly, none of us have driven on this track. Only you have. What is it like at 243 miles an hour?
Well, as I said to you in the back, it's all relative. I've gone 35 miles an hour in my 1964 Mini, and it felt faster. So it depends on what you're driving. The IndyCar is built, obviously, for speed. So at a place like this, 240 feels fast. It feels real fast when something goes wrong. That's the truth. When you're on your own and everything's kind of under control. As my dad always says, everybody has this perception at Indy that if you're going fast, you're really hanging on. That it is the opposite. The best laps you'll ever drive here are the fastest laps. If everything is together and the car's handling well and everything, you're going well. And so it's when things when you are hanging it out is kind of the most difficult laps that you'll ever drive around this place. But to me, it is all relative. We were joking about how during the month of May it's so hard here. You're running around all day. You're doing 220, 230, whatever it may be. Get in your car to go drive to Zionsville in the north end of town, and you've got to go 55 on the freeway. And
what's that like?
Trust me, I've had a couple times. I remember like my third year here, a cop passed me. I was going over the speed limit, of course, and a cop passed me and just went like this, 55, and I was like, oh, okay, got to adjust a little bit. Got to bring the eyes back down to normal speed here.
You said 200.
Yeah, but it's it definitely takes an adjustment around this place. It is fast, and things go by in a hurry. But as I said, it's all relative too. If you drove an IndyCar today and you went 100 miles an hour, I swear to you, you'd feel like you're crawling. I mean, they are built to go, and so this place highlights all of that.
Benjamin, you're a few inches in front of people, a few inches behind people, a few inches off the ground. How difficult is it to maintain a focus as you're going around for 500 miles?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's two sides of it. The qualifying run here, to simply do 4 laps, even though it's just 4 left-hand turns, it is one of the most busy times in the car, I feel, throughout the year. When you're doing your out lap to start your 4 laps, you got to be careful not to overheat the engine. You're in a fuel slot that keeps the engine cold, so you're not going that fast. Keep in mind when I say that, we're still doing 200 in a slot where you're keeping the engine cold. And then, even the timing of when you're coming to opening your lap of when you go to your fast slot on the fuel map is extremely important to when you start building the speed. And you're making an adjustment every lap in arguably a zone within 50 yards every lap of, changing as the temperature on the engine builds. Not to mention you're using a fast weight jacker every lap, and maybe you're readjusting where it resets to every lap to change the balance of the car.
And you're still driving, by the way.
You're driving. You're paying attention to the balance of the car. You need to make a roll bar adjustment change. Do you need to, can you be flat for another lap, or do you need to consider having a small lift? Or there's so many things that go into it, and it's 4 laps, and it is just, there's so much pressure on you, but you just go off instinct. And then on the other side, there is, one of the longest races on the whole calendar is the Indy 500. I think it was well over 2 hours this year. One of my longest races ever as a rookie. So keeping your concentration. On the topic of following cars, it's extremely difficult in an IndyCar around here because of how fast you're going, how much air you're moving off the cars. So if there's a car in front of you and you're following right behind them, your front wing isn't working very well because all the air on the car in front of you is disturbing that air. So you got to be really systematic about where you place the car to try to get some clean air on the car. So it's not easy. There's a big difference if you're starting at the back versus front in terms of your progression throughout the race. So, yeah, to put it into perspective, there's a lot that goes into it.
Who's given you the best advice in how to handle this track? Mr. Foyt?
He's definitely had very relevant advice. Even though he's 88 years old, he knows what's going on in the team. He knows the setup direction. It's pretty impressive. He was here every day this month, as early as I was every day. He had his motorhome here, and that's saying something when you're 88 years old. I mean, I'm only 24, and to be here in the morning sometimes it's like, oh, I feel it this morning, but if he's here, then I can be here. But no, tremendously special, and I'm so excited for this coming year here, and it's a long month. I mean, we stay here in the motorhomes, find a way to utilize time and take small breaks, and but it's a lot of time in the car.
Dealerships and automotive, a family affair, especially with this group right here. And of course, you've already talked about your father. You also had another relative who was a racer, and that would be your grandfather. Many might not know that. Can you explain his role in racing?
Yeah, I mean, my grandfather was the reason this all began. My grandfather was a Lebanese immigrant. He, kind of grew up sort of, it's all earned sort of mentality. His dream was to race sports cars, and he started a fruit juice business. He was one of the pioneers in importing fruit juices back in the 50s and 60s, and brought in, whether it was apple juice from China, one of the first guys to get orange juice and stuff out of Argentina, a variety of different. And so once he started to make a nice living, he decided that he was going to go racing and race amateur sports car, although he did race in the Sebring 12 hours in a few of those events. My grandfather's where the bug all kind of bit the Rahal family, and things went from there. My dad, though, that's where his first big break was. My dad was working at an ad agency in Chicago, kind of thought that was the path he was going to go down. One weekend, they throw him in a car to run out of Blackhawk Farms in the Chicagoland area, and won the race. And then there was a guy named Jim Truman there who started Red Roof Inn hotel chain. And so Jim saw Dad's, his talent, his capabilities, and struck a deal to help sponsor Dad. And off they went. A bunch of years later, they go IndyCar racing. So the rest is history. But the love of the automobile definitely runs deep, really, really, really deep in our family. And so we've been fortunate both on and off the track to be involved in the automotive space for a long time now. Not
to mention the woman who you married, who just happens to be one of the fastest funny car drivers on the planet, with one of the fastest funny car fathers as well.
Yeah. So racing is definitely in my kids' blood. Whether they want to go racing or not, I'm not. Well, on our side, they have a choice. My father-in-law would prefer that they just become drag racers and we don't have the conversation about that. But I don't. Racing is definitely thick with the Force family, and then of course us. There's a lot that goes on. There's a lot of moving parts. Courtney retired in 2018, but John, Brittany, my sister-in-law, they're all still going on the drag racing on the NHRA side, and of course on our side. So there's still a lot of bouncing around back and forth, and keeps us super busy.
And by the way, John Force still is drag racing, right?
Yeah, which we appreciate. That gets him out of the house frequently, and gives us all time. But they're still going, and they're in the middle of a long run right now, actually, to finish this season off. John's had a pretty tough year. It's a big family deal. My brother-in-law Dano, he's John's crew chief, and my sister-in-law Ashley, she does all the filming and stuff. So it's a very tight-knit family gathering, and they're still working hard right now.
Is being part of a family organization does that carry more or less pressure?
Well, I think, everybody's asked me, do I want my girls? I have 2 little girls. Do I want my girls to race? And I think the answer to that, it quite frankly, is no. And a lot of it comes down to, obviously it's a dangerous sport and things can happen at any given time. It's gotten a lot better, but more so is the pressure. I've lived it my entire career. So I remember I was 6 years old first time I drove a go-kart, and I'm from Columbus, Ohio, and on the front page of the Columbus Dispatch was a photo of me as a 6-year-old driving a go-kart for the first time. And you live with this pressure from day one of your career of an expectation that you're going to live up to something. And with social media and the world that we live in today, it's just not a great place to live that way, frankly, anymore. And so I think for the girls, I hope not. But as I said, I think my father-in-law definitely is pushing them hard. I think just we've seen it in a lot of sports, but if you are certainly my 2 daughters, and you have the Force name to live up to, and you've got the Rahal name to live up to, I don't know that anybody would have had, at least in this sport, that sort of pressure prior. So if they want to go down that path, the same thing my dad did not want me to race. I was persistent. We had a deal between he and I as a 8 to 10-year-old about what I need to do in school and how I need to perform. And if my girls do the same thing, I guess, what am I going to say? So we'll see what happens.
You mentioned Columbus. I know you're really happy after Saturday night's effort in South Bend. So
that's literally my voice is just coming back.
Not a fan of Blue Halts either, like Ryan Day.
Whatever. It is what it is. But I was up there, unbelievable atmosphere. As I said, that's why my voice. Sunday I was a waste. Yesterday I got a little bit better, but I was screaming so much. I accidentally used the F word one time, and this Catholic lady in front of me turned around and yelled at me and didn't appreciate it. And I was like, dang, you got to remember you're at Notre Dame.
Football. That was
Ohio
the F word.
State, that's normal.
The F word was football.
But it was a great time.
Benjamin, family affair as well. Your dad got you started in racing. Tell us a little bit about that in the Formula 4 series.
Yeah, nowhere the same story as Graham here with his family, but in my respective family, I was the first one to pursue it as a professional thing. My dad just had a passion for motorsport. My grandpa the same, but nobody really pursued in the same way I have. So that's solely been on me that wanted to go and do this. And I started in 2016 in car racing, to put it in perspective. So not too long ago. 24 years old, and yeah, it's been a crazy journey with how fast it's developed, considering, from the first time in a race car in 2016 to now, this has been my rookie year in IndyCar. But the rate at which I've developed and the situations I've been fortunate to be in have really helped me with that. And just super excited for next year with AJ Foyt again. And, I definitely learned a lot this year. I would say it's the biggest step in terms of all junior formula, and then getting to IndyCar. It's definitely the biggest step, but it's the way you get better. That's how you progress, and just really excited for next year.
And it's interesting. You mentioned just starting relatively short, a short period of time ago. Anymore, karting, if you look at who's in the Formula 1 series at this stage, they're all in go-karts at 4 years old. Right? Is this sport getting younger and younger and younger?
I would say so. My upbringing was a little different in that regard. I did karting, not at the same extent that a lot of the guys I'm racing against have. A lot of guys raced in Europe, in the World Championships and all that. I didn't really do that. Really, my first, professional form of motorsport was when I started in car racing. I did karting as well, but not at that European level. And it's a really interesting topic, because I think a lot of really fast go-kart drivers today, they're coming out and they're maybe not actually the best in cars, because they're so ingrained into how to drive a go-kart fast. Whereas for me, for example, I I wasn't so ingrained like they were, and I think I was able to adapt to a car and actually learn that way, which I think to this day has helped me a lot. So everyone's story is a little different, and yeah, it's just interesting to watch that.
After listening to Graham, and we were talking at the back about dealerships, after listening to the dealer world, do you want to become a car dealer as well?
I
mean,
think
if this racing thing doesn't work out?
It's a big industry. I don't remember how many dealerships you guys say you're managing, but it's impressive to say the least, and maybe one day. Right.
Yeah. Give us the lay of the land. How's the car business been?
Well, I think everybody here knows it's been a great few years. We're in Pennsylvania, all of our stores, throughout Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, State College, Lewistown, Lancaster. And then I have a shop here in India, performance facility that is a car dealership that's more of a specialized. So if you want a one-off X, Y, and Z model, that's what we do. So, this month we sold an F50 Ferrari, we sold an Enzo, sold a lot of that specialty stuff. That's kind of our wheelhouse. And that business has been good. I do see, for us in the range, we're financing is becoming a major struggle, and our clientele that, not being a franchise store over there, it's very difficult to get indirect lending for a company like us, and so that's I think going to make GRP's winter maybe a little tougher than it needs to be. But on the other store side, I mean, it just depends. It goes in waves. I don't know what all brands you guys represent and what all you have. We have no domestics in our group. I think
just tick through some of the brands that you have.
Yeah, so we've got a couple Jag Land Rovers, a couple Volvos, a couple Mercedes stores, BMW, which has been tremendous for us, Mercedes as well. Then on the east, we've got 3 Lexuses, 3 Toyotas, Honda, 2 Hondas, I suppose, Acura. So the brands have been really stable and really steady for us. By design, going back to when the company began, they didn't have domestics, just was kind of one of the company policies for competition. And really in our area, we've been very fortunate. We've been blessed with the markets that we have, that we've been very successful. But, the car dealerships, I've gotten more and more involved as the years have gone on. I love it. The minute that all racing stuff is done, that'll be my focus. Obviously right now I'm a little ways away from that. But then I have a couple Ducati dealerships. We've got a Piaggio store. We've got the only Piaggio store in town, which is Vespa, Moto Guzzi, Aprilia, and Piaggio scooters. Those were kind of strategic to have the Italian power sports brands together. But that business is hard. So if you guys are in power sports or not, but you're thinking about it, don't do it. I'll just help you right now. Don't do it. You're used to making money in car dealerships. You'll be
margins a little thinner there.
Very upset when you go to power sports. But it was a passion play when I was kind of what we talked about when I was a little kid. My dad had a bright yellow 996 Ducati sitting in the garage, and it was forever is engraved in my heart that was the prettiest thing I had ever seen. And so 30-something years later, here we are with a couple Ducati dealerships. But it's all good. I think hopefully I don't know what you guys have seen, but it seems like inventory for us is still coming and going in waves. Some months we're looking really good. Right now I know with Jag Land Rover, for instance, on the Land Rover side, getting big body Rovers is going to be impossible for years. But all of a sudden we're going to be able to get a bunch of Defenders, which is a change of pace from what we've had prior. So things are adjusting kind of quickly on the fly. But it's been a tremendous business. Back in 1989, Dad started with Honda. I think Dad was one of the smartest guys in IndyCar racing at that time. That when Honda approached him to run the IndyCar program, to get the IndyCar program off the ground, one of the first bargaining points was, hey, I'd like something for the future. Do you have any open points in the dealership business? And Dad drove for Rick Hendrick in the early 80s, and Rick said, here's the playbook, here's how you do it, go have fun, and off it went. And it never had aspirations of becoming what it is now, but it's very, very cool for us to be able to represent the brands that we do.
And by the way, having Honda in Central Ohio, where Marysville obviously took off from a manufacturing standpoint, pretty brilliant.
We Well, weirdly, we always lived in Central Ohio, but our dealerships were, he owned part of a store in Dayton, Ohio with a good friend, John Higgins, for a long time. But all of our stores were always in Pennsylvania, and that all actually started with Jim Truman. Again, back to Red Roof. Dad had a couple of opportunities. Here's a store, here's a store, here's a store, or a point. And Jim said here, literally, in the 80s, said, take the helicopter, and you can trust all the data and so on and so forth, but go look from the sky and look around and see what you see in those areas. Look in the vicinity of the potential and pick your base on that. And so Dad selected Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And in '89, that's where our Honda store began. Quickly thereafter, Toyota, and in the mid-'90s is when we got into the high end with Mercedes-Benz. Again, Dad was racing for Mercedes-Benz and IndyCar at the time. We got Pittsburgh. Now we have downtown, and we've got the North Hills, and it's kind of really taken off from there. So it's been amazing to see how it all has developed.
One of your long-standing partners is the second name on your shirt, which is Letterman. How involved is David Letterman in the operation?
He's pretty involved. I wouldn't say day-to-day operations-wise, but from a sponsorship perspective, Dave has a lot of power. He just does. And if you look at our team, and there's a lot of sponsorship that goes through that place, and a lot of it is, name recognition is a big part of that. But Dave's from right here, Broad Ripple, so just north of town, went to Ball State, a little further up the road, and he lives this. He lives this stuff. There is nothing, no day that he misses. When I was on pole here a month ago for the Grand Prix, one of the first texts I got was from Dave, and he was in Greenland. I don't even know how I suppose you can watch from Greenland, but he was locked in, and he doesn't miss a beat. So it's pretty cool in that regard that we've got an owner that's so excited about this as him. And then the third name is Mike Lanigan, who Mike is in the industrial world, manufactures cranes, forklifts, owns the Panama Canal Railway. You name it, Mike's kind of involved in a very modest guy, South Side Chicago from Joliet area. So, but Mike's a powerhouse for us as well.
Benjamin, let's talk a little bit about mental preparation and the psychology of winning, which is part of what we wanted to discuss here today. We have a lot of people in the room who are winners in their own fields and obviously build their own businesses, they're entrepreneurs. What's your own personal psychology of winning? How do you prepare to win and maybe build your own mental fortitude?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely a way of life for me. It's the whole motivation behind every day. All the drivers on the grid spend countless hours with training. It's tremendously physical to do what we do, and it's hot. And the more work you put into it, there's the simple answer is it's going to be better on the racetrack. So a lot of us work really hard with that. But it's been an interesting year for me. A lot of my junior Formula career has been I've been pretty dominant. I've won a lot of races, been with some really good teams. And then this year, for my rookie year, huge history with AJ Foyt Racing, but in respective to IndyCar, one of the lower category teams in terms of the budget we have available and the resources compared to some of the big teams, like Penske and Andretti. So it's been a very interesting topic that you bring this up for this year, because I've gone from a junior Formula career where it's been very dominant to a year where if we get inside top 15, then that feels like a win almost. So it's like everyone here. Nobody shows up to your respective car dealerships and is hoping to be last. Everyone wants to be the best they can, and that's why you put all the work in for it. That's the true answer. And I'd like to be able to look at the mirror every day and say I've done everything I could that day to get better and work hard at it, especially with such a unique opportunity. So that's the motivation for everything. I think for us, even if it's a simple sports game in our free time, I play a lot of pickleball. If I lose, I'm not happy. And it should just be a fun game, but it's the simple realities. So, I think competition is everything for us, and that's why we do it. And I think it's the same for anyone in their respective workplace. Nobody wants to not be the best.
You just ended the season a couple of weeks ago at Laguna Seca. Do you now spend endless amounts of time on a simulator going forward to wait until St. Petersburg next February?
I'm very much into the sim world. I have a very nice setup at my apartment. I actually got a 2-bedroom apartment, not for the purpose of having another bedroom, but it was actually just to make a proper sim room. It's like my little room. So
That's the difference in being a bachelor and being married.
Yeah, you're not doing that, are you?
But it's a great tool. A lot of drivers have it. It's for the most part, it's a great mental tool. You spend a lot of time on it, and again, back to competition. It's a way to stay competitive, and yeah, I love it.
Culture of winning.
Yeah,
Psychology
I think,
of winning.
it's interesting to hear. This is actually good. I think good for you guys to see, because obviously store to store, GM to GM, owner to owner, everybody has a little bit of a different way of doing things. What I find very interesting about racing today is that I'm not a simulator guy at all, but that's because I'm 10 years older than him. And even though that age gap doesn't seem that much, in my generation, which, okay, we're still actively racing against each other, but in my generation, simulators weren't a thing. My teammate Christian came out of Europe extremely fast. That's literally all he wants to do. When I was his age, I was a lot more interested in girls and things like that. He wants to go home and sit on the simulator and play for 10 hours. It's a different way of thinking. It's not right. It's not wrong. It's just an evolution of the way that they prepare. For a guy like me, a lot more of the preparation is studying race tape. A lot more of the preparation is studying data. A lot more is studying what I've done in the past at a race, and when I did well, why I did well. If it was fuel saving, what were my targets that I was trying to hit? If it was saving tires, what were the things that I did pre-race with setup, or that I did during the race to make sure that I was taking care of the tires better for the long run than compared to other drivers. Again, both can be successful, but the way that you go about that on the back end of it can be completely different. I think for me, the biggest challenge with the mentality of winning is that the mentality of winning is ever evolving. And what I mean by that is that it used to be that we all thought a certain way, that we all pushed or prepared in a certain way, and you could be up front. Well, then you get some young guys that come in, and these young guys are fast, but they don't think about it the same as us, as I was just saying. And so now all of a sudden you have to change your mentality. Now you've got to be more prepared. A guy like myself, it takes a lot more hours in the gym today. It takes a lot more hours in massage therapy because the body doesn't feel that good anymore. I've got I'm the biggest guy in the sport. So for me, a lot of neck pain, a lot of headache problems, low back. Like you evolve as you get older too, to stay mentally sharp and prepared to win. But to me, winning is a mindset. It's an all-day thing. It's an everyday thing. Whether that's in business, I find that it's pretty easy to identify employees that are going to be future winners, guys that are going to be able to run the company, and you guys see that every day too. You can also see those who don't think outside the box, don't try to learn every day of how to push themselves to the next level. Whether it's a salesperson, it is a very obvious and clear difference between those who someday want to run the company and they're motivated and you don't have to say a word, to those who come at you wanting a high salary and a low commission base. Those are two different people, but they're all within the same building each and every single day. And so the mentality is polar opposites, and that translates right over to racing. You've got guys who are there, who are ultra talented, but they're not going to put in the last 10% of effort that it takes to be a winner. And then you've got guys that are the opposite. My dad, when I was a kid, my dad always used to tell me, I may not have as much talent as some of these guys, but I'll never be outworked. And I think to this day, it's been the same for me too. I mean, there's some kids that come in and drive these cars, and they're just flat out fast. And you've got to find a way to reinvent yourself each and every day to find the speed to get out there and be out front. And so, as I said, it's kind of an ever-evolving thing. You guys see it in your world. You guys are here with Reynolds. You see the evolution of their tools and what they can provide to you to streamline the process, to make you more money on the back end of it. Something that we're doing at our stores a lot is utilizing the pad to make sure that we're promoting our PPF films and everything else, and F&I to try to make more money. I mean, we've always got to be on the cutting edge to push forward, and so that's the same mentality that goes into the racetrack every single day.
PPF films. This guy sounds like a car dealer, doesn't he? I mean, he's
well, I have a PPF shop too here in town, so I'm always pitching that.
Outside of fathers, your mentors, who would they be? Role models. You can't say A.J. Foyt. You can't say David Letterman.
Yeah, mine was, I was so lucky that I got to drive for Paul Newman my first 2 years in IndyCar racing, which was a long time ago now.
17 years.
Yeah, so Paul died in September of 2008. And in I would say the end of 2006, I was in Formula Atlantic, which is what Ben calls Indy Next. Now it's the step before you get to the top. And I won 5 times that year, and I remember every time I won, the first face in the car was Paul Newman. And so I got an opportunity to go drive for him at Newman Haas, which was a tremendous team. The Andretti's all drove there. Nigel Mansell drove there. I mean, the list of names with Newman Haas was a mile long. But the most powerful part of that man was, who he is and who he was outside of being a Hollywood actor and a veteran and everything else that Paul did. On the charity side in particular, there is nobody who did as much for the world and the community, particularly of children, than Paul Newman. And did it in a very different way. I know everybody respects Bill Gates and guys like that, but they got a lot of money and they can easily stroke a check. Paul Newman didn't have the kind of money. He didn't have the ability to do that, but what he utilized was his star to make everybody else's life brighter. And I think in a big way, you look at Newman's Own, you guys see it on the shelves. In 2008, to give you a little bit of background, he told me the whole story of how it was created. I'm not going to tell you because it'd take too long, but the whole story how it was created. And, of course, then Paul fashion joked, if I was a smart man, I would have split it 50-50. But he had given $180 million to kids' charities by 2008. Imagine where that number is today. It's unbelievable to see what he has created. And so as a young guy, I thought there was no better. Yeah, it had nothing to do with racing, really. But there was no better person to learn from than Paul Newman. Certainly wish he was still around.
And I want to talk about your foundation in a minute, but mentor?
Yeah, I mean, it's the big one is definitely my parents, just because of the upbringing, especially through all my junior formula and my rookie year here in IndyCar. There's many times in Indy Next, for example, where a lot of the test days or certain practice days we'd be particularly quick, the fastest car on track. And I remember my dad would say, "Great job, but just you got to stay focused. He would always push me even in the times where we were really good and times where we would struggle. He would help find ways to give me a little insights to things and encouragement. So for sure, my parents. I think with anyone here, from a life perspective, your parents have such a big inspiration on you. But really fortunate to have worked with some really good teams as well over my career so far, which is not nearly as long as what Graham's has been so far. But yeah, it's surrounding yourself with really good, genuine people, I would say, isn't a very, it's hard to find really good, genuine people, and but I've been very fortunate in that regard. So I could take my hat off for a lot of people.
We have a few minutes left. Graham, let's end on a high note here, an inspirational note. The Graham and Courtney Rahal Foundation is dedicated to helping veterans and finding a cure to cancer. It's exactly what you just said. This is your part of giving back now, right? Tell us a little bit about that.
My foundation actually started right in that media center in 2009 in May. And so when Paul passed away, I was still driving for Newman Haas at the time. I was driving for McDonald's. And McDonald's was obviously Newman's Own was the salad dressing at McDonald's for all those years. And but when Paul passed away, the presence of hole in the wall camps and Newman's Own, everything kind of disappeared out of the team and kind of out of racing. And so I felt that it was my duty to kind of carry it on. I was only 19 years old at the time, so it was kind of a pipe dream to believe that that I was going to be able to do it all myself. But we started here with the golf tournament. We still do it. The Thursday before the Indy 500 Every single year we have a golf tournament right here. It's a ton of fun. We raise a ton of money, and we give that back now. Our focus is to help our veterans with Soldier Strong. So we do a couple things. My biggest sponsor is United Rentals. Every lap we turn throughout the year, United Rentals donates money. We've raised $3 million over the last 5 years for veterans, and we provide exoskeletons to paralyzed veterans, to VA hospitals for paralyzed veterans to get up, to be mobile. It helps them in so many ways with bone density, muscle mass, but most importantly, to be honest, most of these people, it's morale. To be able to stand up and look you in the eye, that's not something they're able to do anymore on their own. And so we try to change that. And we get Bryce, or we get Sergeant Dan Rose, who's a very close friend now, to come out and demonstrate. He could walk right through this room, stand for the national anthem at the Indy 500, do all those things and change their lives in a big way. We also provide VR technology to veterans with PTSD. You know, PTSD is a huge issue right now. My future brother-in-law is a former JSOC Special Command flight engineer off a C-130, did the Baghdadi raid and a bunch of other stuff. And those guys don't come back with the same mindset that they left with, unfortunately. And the VR technology, what it does is, I know this is going to sound crazy to those of you that aren't used to it, but they go back and relive the moments. So let's say their buddy, got killed in an accident. What happens with PTSD is they start to blame themselves. Even if that's not the case, they blame themselves. But with all the technology that the military has nowadays, we can rebuild the entire situation. We can put it back in there, play it at their pace, and it gives them some sort of closure to the whole process of what happened and why it happened, and that it wasn't their fault, or, oh, we missed this, but, here's why. So that's critical. So we do an event coming up in 3 weeks. How many of you like wine? Somebody's got like wine in here. Okay. So we go to Napa Valley. Napa Valley has the highest percentage of population of veterans of anywhere in the country. Big VA hospital. We go to Napa Valley. We have an event called Vino for Vets. It's a lot of fun. It is a very blurry experience, as you can imagine, but we raise a lot of money. So those are our two things for the veterans that we do. And then we work with Colorado State One Cure, and we work very hard to find a cure for cancer. Right now, we utilize dogs. Dogs naturally get cancer. Humans obviously naturally get cancer. Most cancer research is done on mice. Mice don't get cancer. So every time we do research on a mouse, we're giving it cancer, we're giving it a mutated form, then we're trying to treat a mutated form of cancer, rather than with a dog, it naturally gets cancer. A dog is 85% genetically the same as a human. So if you ever wonder why we're such close friends, that's it. But many of you will know, if you have a Great Dane, or you have a Golden Retriever, or a Retriever of some type, or a Lab, you have probably, unfortunately, lost a dog to cancer or been a part of that. So we utilize the group at Colorado State One Cure. They're an amazing group, and we use comparative oncology, which is a huge deal. And knock on wood, we've got something going that's tremendous. The Losartan study, it is to cure osteosarcoma, bone cancer. In dogs, over 100,000 dogs get osteosarcoma a year. Less than, I think, 1,000 kids get it a year. But when kids get it, it's terminal. It's not good. We've seen such positive results in dogs. They'll never say it cures, but we have seen dogs that came in with osteosarcoma and leave without ever having a hint of it again. Our foundation funds the Losartan study. We've had such good success at Denver Children's Hospital that we went to Atlanta a couple years ago. Had really good success there. So now we're going to be adding our third and fourth children's hospitals this year. So it's a lot of fun stuff. When I say we fund it, you guys know the truth. Courtney and I, we don't fund it, but everybody that supports our foundation does. And we've been very fortunate through our team to have super generous people that donate a lot of money. So like I said, our biggest one's our golf tournament right here, Thursday before the Indy 500. And, we raise $400,000 a year plus. So it's been extremely, extremely rewarding for my wife and I to be able to see this thing, keep taking off and raise a lot of money to help.
Wonderful story. Wonderful story. Passionate philanthropist, IndyCar driver, future car dealer. the 2023 Indy 500 Rookie of the Year. How about a round of applause for these two gentlemen? Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Chris?
Once again, another round of applause for Benjamin, Graham, and Jason. So that, to me, that was really kind of fascinating to listen to. And if you enjoyed it, Jason is managing director at the Presidio Group, which is a leading retail technology and dealership acquisition organization. And one of the things that Jason does in his spare time is he has a show on SiriusXM radio called Cars and Culture with Jason Stein. And you get to hear those kinds of conversations. It's conversations, with musicians and actors and athletes. So it's a really kind of broad spectrum of perspective on things. So I promise you won't be disappointed if you listen to it. Just a couple house cleaning items. First of all, I do want to recognize our team that kind of put this whole event together, led by Greg Euland and Ashley Wrench and Colleen Whalen and Adam Brixey. They're the ones that made all this happen. So thank you, Greg and team, for all your hard work. And certainly thank you to the Penske organization and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for allowing us to be in this amazing venue. It really makes you want to come back and see a real race. I haven't had the opportunity to do that, but I really want to do that now. But you all have a card that I think is on your table or that you were given. So it kind of gives you a little bit of the lay of the land, but you're going to be free to go in just a minute, and you can enjoy either the product stations that we have in this room, or kind of immediately to my right and behind you, or straight ahead for me, is some of our educational forums that we're hosting. So I hope you enjoy the next couple hours and the balance of the day. Thank you again for being here. I look forward to meeting those of you who I haven't met yet, and I hope it's a real educational experience for all of you while you're here. So thanks again. Have a great rest of the day.